This is Year 6 Maths for Friday the 12th of June, and the learning objective is I can record my answers to a ratio problem clearly. We're going to be working through a longer ratio problem today, so to start with, pause the video and have a read through of this pumpkin pie problem for yourself. Okay, now you've had a look through for yourself, we'll have a read through together. Peter, the pumpkin eater, wanted to make 2 pies for a party. His mother, a professional pie maker, had a recipe for him to use. However, she always made 80 pies at a time. She used 10 dozen eggs, 27 litres of condensed milk, 480 tablespoons of sugar, 100 teaspoons of cinnamon, and 140 cups of pumpkin. Peter looked in his cupboard and found 4 cups of pumpkin, 2 eggs, 1½ teaspoons of cinnamon, 2/3 of a litre of condensed milk, and 15 tablespoons of sugar. Did Peter have enough ingredients to make 2 pumpkin pies for the party, or did he need to buy any more? So first off, let's have a think about some of those measures. Pause the video and have a think about how many eggs there are in a dozen. So a dozen means 12. There are 12 eggs in a dozen. If there are 12 eggs in 1 dozen, how many eggs in 10 dozen? You need to multiply that 12 by 10. And another thing to think about, how many millilitres in 1 litre? So as a reminder, there are 1,000 millilitres in 1 litre. Now it's time to have a think about the strategies you could use to solve this problem. The recipe is for 80 pies, but Peter only wants to make 2 pies. So we're going to need to change the recipe by scaling it down. So have a think about what scale factors might work well. And also have a think, how could you record your work? Pause the video for a moment and then we'll talk about it together. So a really good way of recording your work for this problem so that you keep it very nice and clear and easy to follow is to put it into a table, something like this. Another thing to think about is the amounts that you scale by. The recipe is for 80 pies. You eventually want to get a recipe for 2 pies, but it's probably going to help you to take steps to get there. And I would recommend that the first step you make is to go from 80 pies to 8 pies, which means dividing all the ingredients by 10. Once you've got to 8 pies, it's then quite easy to get to 4 pies. You just need to halve all of the ingredients. And then once you've got 4 pies, you can halve the ingredients again to get your final recipe for 2 pies. So first off, pause the video and have a try at scaling the recipe down by 10 so that you have a recipe for 8 pies. So you're going to look at all those ingredients, divide the amounts by 10 so that you've got your recipe for 8 pies. So here's what the recipe should look like for 8 pies. There will be 12 eggs, 2.7 litres of condensed milk, 48 tablespoons of sugar, 10 teaspoons of cinnamon and 14 cups of pumpkin. Now it's time to pause the video again and have a try at scaling the recipe down from 8 pies to 4 pies. So you'll need to divide all the ingredients by 2 or halve them. Here's what your new recipe should look like. There'll be 6 eggs, 1.35 litres of condensed milk, 24 tablespoons of sugar, 5 teaspoons of cinnamon and 7 cups of pumpkin. Now for the final step. Pause the video again and have a go at scaling the recipe down one more time for 2 pies. So again, you'll need to halve all of those ingredients. Some of the amounts were a little bit trickier this time. For the eggs, it's 3 eggs. For the milk, it's really helpful if you turn that 1.35 litres into millilitres. So that would be 1,350 millilitres. And then it's much easier to find half of that amount in millilitres. It'll be 675 millilitres of condensed milk. 12 tablespoons of sugar. Again, for the cinnamon, you're going to need to use a half, a fraction or a decimal. So instead of 5 teaspoons of cinnamon, it's 2.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. And for the pumpkin, it's 3.5 cups of pumpkin. So to finish work on the problem, you need to have a think about whether Peter could make his 2 pies, and if not, what he'd need more of. So let's compare the recipe for 2 pies with what Peter's got in his cupboard. Pause the video while you have a look and decide whether Peter has enough ingredients to make 2 pies. So what you should have found is that no, Peter doesn't have enough ingredients to make the recipe for 2 pies. He has got enough sugar and pumpkin, but he needs another egg, 1 more teaspoon of cinnamon, and about 8 millilitres more milk, because 2/3 of a litre would be 666.666 millilitres of condensed milk, but he needs 675 millilitres of condensed milk. So to finish off your work for today, you need to make sure that you've recorded this final part of the problem nice and clearly next to your table of ingredients. Well done for your problem solving and your work on ratio and proportion, and have a really lovely weekend.